Hello, I'm Tom Martin, and welcome to another episode of A San Francisco Conservative, the new podcast series featuring yours truly, Tom Martin. I'm a lifelong journalist. I was about to say educator, but that's our other host. I spent years working for ABC News, CBS News, CNN, and so on. I love asking thought-provoking questions. And it's funny, as I ease into this episode, I'm reminded back at Good Morning America, my executive producer, Shelley Ross, would always coach us producers and say, the audience is looking for the nuggets. And as you'll see, ladies and gentlemen, today's episode is about the nuggets. And they're pearls of wisdom from our co-host and man of the hour, David Parker, who's the author of Income and Wealth and A San Francisco Conservative. That's the title of the book. When I hear those words, I'm thinking I'm labeling you a San Francisco conservative, which may be accurate, but it's the title of your latest book. So welcome, David. How are you?
Thank you. Well, I hear the word nugget, so I think of this.
Nuggets from your noggin. Yeah, that could be the title of our next series or something like that. But so it's funny. Let's start right at the top. You have been writing a series of great essays. I have the privilege of seeing them before they reach publication stage. And in your latest essay that you sent me, it's a series of observations that, and that's really why I love these conversations. And let's start right at the top. You are a lifelong educator, spent 50 years teaching children in the San Francisco public school system. What advice do you have for people when it comes to education?
Well, education is a way out of poverty, that's for sure. So I'm not knocking it. And we have public schools because Thomas Jefferson said, democracy is so fragile, it doesn't exist really anywhere, the kind of democracy we're about to have, and it's so easily lost. So if you don't have an educated population, you're going to lose it. So he created public schools in Virginia. At the time, nobody would have thought that the government should administer the schools, actually do the educating. That's a modern concept, thanks to teachers' unions and progressive politics. That we should have public school districts, and tons of beautiful schools throughout the nation were amalgamated into public school districts. And those schools just dropped in quality all over the nation to make a uniform education for everybody. So education is important, and that's the second theme. The theme that, for business, though, if you want to really rise to the top, you can't start in the middle. You have to start at the bottom. Because otherwise, you don't know what you don't know, and you're going to be in a business negotiation. And something's will come up. Oh, yeah, I remember when I was working in the mailroom, or I remember when I was sweeping the floors. When you're sweeping the floors, you're there 6 o'clock in the morning, and you realize who's coming in at 6 o'clock in the morning. It might be not the CEO, but it might be the CFO. And he sees you every morning, and pretty soon you're talking to each other. Boom, you've got a contact right at the top. You're talking with the CFO. He sees you every morning, and he likes you. And you just don't know what you don't know if you don't start at the bottom. If you start in the middle, you'll probably never rise to the top. If you go get an MBA, that's just because you want a job and you're competing with other people who want that same job, but you're not going anywhere once you get that job. You may get a decent salary, you can support your kids, but you're not going to rise to the top. People who rise to the top don't go to college in business. And it's like no different. When you're 18 to 22, your mind is at its most fertile. Mathematicians do their very best work at that age, and they shouldn't be going to school. If you have athletic talent, or you don't, they pull you out of college right away. I remember I was playing tennis in San Jose State when I first started off, and we played Stanford, and there was McEnroe. He was at San Jose State for 6 months, and they pulled him out of school. You better start practicing tennis, man. You're going to the top. You can't go to school. You can't go to the top and go to school. And Einstein is sitting there in a patent office writing the most revolutionary, brilliant ever written by mankind. He's not sitting there in school. In fact, he probably failed in school. Couldn't sit still. You're going to rise to the top. you have to be working at what you're doing. That's it. If you're really serious, drop out of school.
Is this, I know, and especially in some recent conversations and some recent episodes of this podcast series, you've spoken about Andrew Carnegie and, how fascinating he is or was as, the richest man in the world, building that wealth, from 18 to 30, an amazing style. I think you said that was one of his beliefs also, is don't go to college, don't step off the track of that learning and immersing yourself, starting at the bottom, like you just said.
Yeah. To what extent I got that idea from him, I'm not sure anymore. I've sort of incorporated that into my own thinking. It probably comes from him. And he says, he doesn't, or I'm saying, and he's the proof of it. It doesn't take more than 10 years to rise to the top. There's no athlete who works for 10 years and then he didn't make it to the top. He'll stop. So it's not forever that you have to work like that. Andrew Carnegie spent the whole rest of his life. He made his fortune by the time he was 30. He spent his life giving it away and reading and writing all day long. And he founded the Andrew Carnegie Institution for Peace. They're all over the world. They're in Moscow, they're in Lebanon, they're all over the place. And he tried to stop the World War I before it happened. He said, you guys are just building up arms and you're like little kids. And sure enough, some little tiny instances you're gonna pull your gun out of your holster and start firing. And it's exactly what happened. That started World War I, exactly like he said it. And he was talking to every president and every king, the Kaiser, everybody, telling them to stop. He says, England and Germany, why don't you put your navies together and patrol the world and for peace? Do something decent. Don't prepare for war, prepare for peace.
Wow. Interesting.
And those institutions are still in effect today and are still effective. And all those libraries, he's living with 2-3 families in a home with no money, no contacts. He comes when he's a young kid, and he knows what that life is. And then he was running to the library all the time. So he built libraries all across the country, and he built concert halls all across the country. He says that only the wealthy should hand out money because they know how it's made. People who didn't make it should not be handing out money. Government should not be handing out money because they're going to give it to relieve suffering and just temporary stuff. Hard-earned money should go for hard-earned things that benefit everyone, schools and libraries and concert halls and scholarships, whatever. That's where it should go. It shouldn't be going to, giving money for the homeless.
Well, the Carnegie Endowment is still alive and well, right? All these many, many years later.
So in his 10 years, he became the richest man even today, on today's standards of the world. 10 years.
Amazing. Yeah. I'm just curious, you're the father of, I think, two young adult successful children. Do you give them that advice also? Don't go to college?
In a way, I told them, since I was paying for it, that if I hear you're studying computers or business, I'm cutting all the funds. So they both majored in history. This is, I want you reading and writing all day long. That's what you do when you go to college. When they finished college, my daughter ran to the Culinary Academy in San Francisco and lucked out and got the nation's best pastry chef, who took her under his wing because she had some talent. And now she's Northern California's #1 cake designer. And my son ran to New York to work for a sculptor who's well known. And now he's in Northern California, one of North California's best furniture designers. He builds no nails, no screws, Japanese joinery. Google just called him, says, can you we're expanding our factory. Can you make us a huge bench system that goes around the whole factory? He goes, sure, without knowing. He says, and he's sweating there. He's talking to all these top Google executives who do big planning, and he's talking like he's one of them. He says, but he just had my gumption, I guess. He says, he's sure I can do that. And he got a huge commission. He's building a huge steam bent wood, no nails, no screws, benching for the whole new factory they're building at Google.
Wow, that's
So
beautiful.
that, yeah, most of my kids did fine.
That's great. And both very creative fields. I mean, like your passion and you excel in music, classical and jazz. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Exactly.
interesting. One of the, we were talking earlier about social media, and one of the social media experts who I've really enjoyed learning from, I mean, not directly, I've met him a couple times, more from his books and videos and so on, is a fellow by the name of Gary Vaynerchuk, Russian immigrant, I believe. And he was just not a good student, but I hear, whenever he's giving advice to people in their early 20s and so on, he said, be an apprentice somewhere, find a really brilliant person, I guess maybe similar to what your daughter did, and learn that way, because that's not an education you're going to get in school. So it's interesting.
My first book is called Income and Wealth, and I'm saying they're unconnected. And that's not unrelated to this discussion here. You get a job if you have to make some money. You do whatever you have to do to make a little money, but all that money goes to live on. There's no connection with wealth. Wealth is another thought process, completely separate, which has to do with leveraging into income producing assets. It's a completely different. And if you leverage correctly, professional investors, they don't put any money down. They have to, they get some investors to go in with them, or they just get the bank to loan the full thing. Yeah. That's what I do. I get the bank to loan the whole amount. Yeah. That's professional. That you have to start thinking and making mistakes and learning how to present it. You don't, that you don't learn in school. So you're wasting your time in school if that's what you want to do. If you want to make a lot of money quick, don't go to school. Yeah.
No, it's interesting. I don't know if ironic is the right word. Let me just throw in real quick. Again, if our viewers or listeners are joining us midstream here, this is A San Francisco Conservative, the new podcast series featuring me, Tom Martin, journalist asking questions, and my dear friend David Parker, providing the wisdom. David is the author of Income and Wealth and A San Francisco Conservative. And again, I'm glad you were speaking about your first book, Income and Wealth, and that is a very interesting idea. That's sort of an insight that's coming to me later in life, I must admit, from our conversations, that income and wealth are not connected. And I remember you telling me that you felt called to go into a profession because it just appealed to you, and it wasn't with the thought, I will become wealthy, becoming a public school teacher, but you really structured your life in a way that you could do what you love and generate the wealth, build that wealth through what you teach through your books.
Yeah. When you're really young, you don't know what I'm talking about now. I knew I wanted to become a teacher for almost the wrong reason. I remember the moment I knew I wanted it in the 8th grade. I'm looking at the teacher, says, "Hey, that guy is off all summer, and he's off for every other cockamamie holiday that's stupid. That's not a bad job. That's what I'm going to do. I want to be off 4 months a year."
That's funny.
I just knew that. So that's not the right reason. And then I fell in love with teaching, and I taught 40 years and I couldn't get enough. I volunteered another 10 years.
Well, I have a feeling. I mean, I'm sure that was a reason and maybe started you on that path. But from all our conversations, I get the sense that you really enjoyed the interaction with the little children, and that,
yeah. No, everybody was in my class in the school. I had a music program. The whole school was in my class. And I even got fired from a job once. The principal comes up to me right before a concert. He says, "Mr. Parker, you have more kids on the stage than are in the auditorium. We've never had a music teacher like you before." And he says, "Don't come back next year." Right at the beginning of the concert, he says, "You're not one of us. This is San Francisco. We're a town of lefty communists. You're not. Just the way you walk down the hall, people think you're the principal. I want you out of here."
Sounds like they were choosing to embrace
to start the concert, and he comes up to me, telling me, "Get out. Don't come back next year."
Crazy. Well, I know you
San
left
Francisco.
that's their loss. Well, I know you've left a big impression on couple generations of students right there in the area where you live there.
Yeah, I did.
So, but I want to circle back to what you were saying, that core idea that we haven't talked about in a long time. I mean, in some of our episodes that we recorded, you did say, you know, that is one of the fundamental ideas that you express in your book, Income and Wealth, that the two are not the same thing. If someone wants to embark on that path of building wealth to achieve financial freedom, can you get a little bit more specific about how, you know, what they need to do that?
All right, you can go two paths. In my book, Income and Wealth, says, here are the two paths. One is a path for someone who has no financial insight, no business experience. Still, there's no excuse for not becoming financially independent, and that should be everyone's economic goal. So if you're on minimum wage, I give an example of an employee at McDonald's, you just save half your salary, which is kind of hard, but if you're not going to think and do things more creatively, just do that. Save half your salary and buy an income producing asset with leverage, 50%, 70%, borrow that much, put a little down payment. Just buy the house next door. Don't even think about it. If 10 people are lining up to buy that house, that's probably the price of that house. You don't have to worry about it. Just buy it. Next year, buy the next house. Buy the corner grocery. Buy a fleet of trucks. Just do that one a year for 10 years and you're done. Because the loans pay down, the income goes up, you have tax write-offs, and you look at I did almost an Excel sheet. You look at the numbers, whoa, the income, net income after all expenses is what I was making when I started. I can quit my job. I'm free for life. I can do plan A. I can be an artist, or I can open up a restaurant knowing the odds are not good that it's going to be successful. Do it anyway. You can be what you want in life. That's one plan, and that works. It's a Spartan lifestyle. Maybe you have to have two families in a home for a while. I don't know how you're going to do it.
If you're able to put off that immediate gratification, I mean,
put off that immediate gratification. When you're younger, of course, it's much easier. And then the other way is to be as a sophisticated investor, you learn how to finance your deals, and that takes practice. You just keep making offers and asking banks and making mistakes. Oh, don't say that again. Oh, don't say that again. Oh, that worked. You have to put in the time and you become a professional investor. A leveraged buyout, that's professional investing. That's what Wall Street teaches, not in school, but that's what they do. They finance deals completely.
Do you think that more people are capable of that process or that skill? Then, you know, I must admit, I've never really ventured out to do that kind of thing. I'm sure I would have learned a lot if I had stuck my neck out and made some mistakes, learned from experience and so on. But do you think that more people are capable of doing that than really have taken that path that you just described?
No.
Okay. It's not for everyone, I guess. Okay.
It's not for everyone. You know that's in you. I mean, when I started to teach, very quickly, after 1 year, as much time as I had off teaching, I dropped it down to 3 days out of 5 days a week, because I realized, ooh, I'm one of those people who knows how to do that. I got some encouragement from a landlord. I went to visit an apartment in North Beach where I wanted to live at the time. And he says, David, I'm not going to give you the apartment. The way you talk, you're not a tenant. I'm going to do you a favor. You go buy a house. Don't rent. Get that out of your mind. You're not a renter. That's not who you are. That was a nice start. That's sprung my ambition a little bit.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I tell you, we could talk much more, and I think we will save those future nuggets, as I describe them, for our next episode. But that's right. That's right. So I want to thank you for joining us for this episode. And for those of you listening and watching, I definitely encourage you to pick up copies of David's books, Income and Wealth, which we were just discussing, and his latest book, A San Francisco Conservative. You can do that by visiting David's website, davidparkeressays.com, or by going to Amazon. So thanks again. Look forward to the next time.
Both of those books are rich in material and of interesting things for readers.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Highly recommended. Okay. Well, I'll catch you next time. Thank you.
Good.